Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So as we all know, Age of Empires 2 is a very complex strategy game that is difficult to understand, let alone to master. Take a look at this classic question. What is the best civ in the game? Now obviously the short answer is, it depends. It depends because there's so many different maps and settings that make it difficult to find an answer that is suitable to all these different situations. I decided, however, to narrow it down to the most popular setting, 1v1 Arabia. Now, to be able to actually answer this question, what is the best civ in the game, I first have to stack up all 31 civs and weigh their pros and cons and how they compare against each other. So I made my tier list that is composed of four different parts. So first category is going to be top tier, then we have great, then we have good, and then we have poor. Before I get started with this tier list, I just want to say that this is purely my opinion. This is not fact. It might change. I mean, you might have different opinions. Keep in mind, this is just based on my experiences and my thousands of games played over the years. Before I get started, I just want to get a couple ground rules out of the way. So the first one is that this tier list is going to be more suited towards the competitive level, which is going to be 2200 or higher on Voobly or any tournament games like King of the Desert, where it's 1v1 Arabia as well. This doesn't mean that it doesn't apply for a say 1500 game on Voobly, beginner level. I'm just making it for the top level. My second rule is that both the players, your opponent, is the same level as you, or roughly the same level. All right, so without further ado, let's hop right into the tier list. All right, so for the top tier civs, you're gonna notice a pattern. All three of these civs, Franks, Mains, and Aztecs, all have great unit options throughout the game, as well as a really, really strong economy to back it up. So take the Mains for example. A very strong civ and notoriously to be one of the best on Arabia, amongst other settings as well. They have a very strong economy. They've got great options with their cheaper archers, their plumed archer, which is their unique unit, as well as obsidian arrows and the El Dorado eagles in the Imperial Age. Combine all those factors, and you have a very top tier 1v1 Arabia civ. The Aztecs are similar, with their early game men at arms, followed up by faster production of archers or skirmishers, and then followed up in the Imperial Age with maybe some monks and a very strong eagles. Franks are very similar as well. Great early game scout rush, great economy with their free farm upgrades as well as their berry bonus, and just overall smooth options throughout the game, like the throwing axeman, bombard cannon, or hand cannoneer in the Imperial Age. All right, moving on to the great. I just want to say one honorable mention is the Chinese. The Chinese could easily replace Franks here. I just think that personally, Franks seem like a little bit of a smoother civ, and without the messy start, it's a lot more of a consistent civ as well. However, if you get the start down, they are a very top tier civ with a great economy and pretty much +2 villagers above your opponent. Starting from feudal age at the end of Dark Age when you get loom. All right, Vikings is another really powerful civ. Obviously, their free wheelbow and handcart, as well as their berserk option in the late game, make them a smooth civ throughout, and definitely deserving of the great position to tier one. One of the more interesting civs on here would be the Spanish. So the Spanish aren't a special civilization. They don't really have an eco bonus per se. However, the unique unit, the Conquistador, is the best Castle Age unit hands down. It doesn't compare to any other unit. There's only a few units in the game that could really stack up against the Conquistador, which is like the Plumed Archer or the Longbowman from the Britons. However, even in small numbers, the Conquistador will win against these kind of units. And overall, it just carries Spanish to this great position. And it could be an auto win in certain matchups, like, for example, Slavs versus Spanish. Slavs, another great civ, but they don't really have an answer to conquistadors in the Castle Age, which, again, another reason why Spanish is really powerful. Huns is pretty self explanatory, very strong civilizations. They can pretty much do anything and they're very versatile. Mongols is a bit of a weird one because they have such a strong early game, but I decided to put them in the great position. Just because of their laming potential. So this at the top level could be extremely impactful on a game. If you're able to steal a boar, not only do you deny your opponent a boar, but also you have three Mongol boars, and since you gather them 50% faster, it leads to a really crazy early game advantage. They do fall off in the Castle Age, however, so you have to make sure if you're playing them, you make sure you get an early game advantage that allows you to carry into a mid game and late game advantage as well. Japanese are very versatile, similar to the Huns. They can pretty much do anything, especially now that they have bloodlines, and they even have a really good late game with the Osama towers and great trash units. Slavs are not in the top tier. That might be a little bit questionable for you guys. However, I don't think they deserve top tier just because they're not as smooth as Franks are. Their early game is a bit weak because it takes time to get the farms rolling. And also they don't have bracer in the late game, which is something that uh, Aztecs and Mayans have, for example. Even though Franks lack it, I think Franks have a much better early and mid game to compensate. So Slavs are a great civ, but not quite top tier. All right, moving on to the good civs. Now, keep in mind, these civs are great as well. Like the good civs can beat the great civs. However, in certain situations, they are kind of lackluster, as well as sometimes they're lacking an eco bonus. So let's run through them here real quick. Incas, a great civ, a lot of people will like it. However, they don't quite compete with any of the civs I've placed around here on tier one. And so I decided to make them in the good category because they're overall solid, but they don't have a strong eco bonus that really makes them stand out. Their Kamukes are a really strong anti-cavalry unit though in the Castle Age. So if you like playing for that late game, to counter those Cav civs like Franks for example, Kamuk or Inca could be a really good civ. All right, Celts is one of those really hard to make work civs. You have to make a lot of transitions when you're playing this civ, and it could be really weak in the early imp when you don't really have any solid options to, just right from the get-go, like Arbalest, for example. That's why I put them in the good part of the tier list, the tier two. Just because they don't really have fast options to go for. However, they do have a great economy as well as a very solid early game with their speedy men at arms. So definitely a good civ here, but not quite tier one just because they're a bit awkward with the transitions. Ethiopians might be a weird one. I know a lot of you guys like this civ. It's a fan favorite. The faster firing archer is very fun to play with. However, they're lacking the last armor on the cavalier as well as bloodlines, which really hurt your late game when it comes to like light cav raids, as well as any knight play or camel play in the castle age. So they're kind of easy to counter with just skirmishers. They don't have the best eco bonus, just that 100 food, 100 gold when you age up, which is not very impactful throughout the game. So yeah, definitely a good civ, but not anything higher. Indians and Byzantines. So these two civs are kind of opposite, but Indians have a great economy, but they're kind of lacking in terms of options for military. Like think about it, they lose to pretty much any Mesociv because they have trouble dealing with eagles. The lack of knights hurts a lot when it comes to games that are going in forwards. So they're good economy, yes, but they don't have the best options to go for. Byzantine, on the other hand, have great options. They have the cheaper trash, um, the cheaper camels, as well as the cataphract, which is a very powerful unit. However, they're missing an economy bonus to go along with this, so that's why they're unfortunately in the good position. But I do like Byzantine. I think in the right hands can be a very powerful civ. Portuguese, kind of like a civ that can do everything. They have Arbalest, they've got Light Cav with +4 armor. Their unique unit, the Organs, is very powerful as well, and they get a discount on their gold units. It's just that they don't really stand out in a lot of ways, and that's why I have them in the good position. I actually almost put them in the poor section, but I figured they're a little bit smoother than Malay. Malay kind of feel awkward at times, so I decided to swap these two out because of the Organ. Berbers, you guys might be surprised. Berbers are a weird civ because they have really good units in their camel archer and their cheaper knights or cavalier, as well as in the late game they have bomber cannon and hand cannoneer. But they're lacking an eco bonus, and I struggle. I struggle to put them on anything higher because they just fall short usually, and you're not able to get to those late game options like the elite camel archer with Hussar combo before getting steamrolled by like an Arbalest cap ram or a Halb cap ram push in early imp. So Berbers are good, but I don't think that they're great because of their lack of eco bonus here. Maggers are very similar actually. They have good early game options like their cheaper scouts or their +1 attack on the men at arms. That free forging upgrade comes in really really powerful in the early game, but they're just lacking an eco bonus, man. It's very hard to put them anything higher than good, just because they're a little bit slow to get going. However, their late game is very powerful with their heavy cav archer with the recurved bow, giving them +1 attack and +1 range. Combine that with their Mega Hussar, and you have a very powerful army. But of course, it's very difficult to get there. Same reason as Berbers. Persians, they have really good economy. They're similar to Indians actually. Great economy, faster producing villagers. They're kind of lacking in the sense that they don't have bracer, which makes their late game a little bit weak. And well, they just don't have Arbalest that is good for early imp. So they're pretty much one trick cav unit. They do have hand cannoneer, but that's a little bit weak. As assuming that's the only option for anti hub in imp. Because since they're missing bracers. So yeah, good economy, kind of missing some important upgrades, and is a little bit awkward overall. Malians. So Malians used to be one of those great civilizations that a lot of people even said was their their favorite 1v1 Arabia Civ, hands down. But they got a couple of nerfs with the patches that came out like a year ago, and now I struggle to put them anything higher than good. They have a really good economy, a very flexible civ similar to Huns, but they're lacking Bracer, which is again time and again I mention it, but it's a very important upgrade in the late game. And so I struggle to put them anything higher than good. Their Gebeto, their unique unit, is very strong, but situational because it dies to archers or any like onager line. They do have gunpowder, hand cannoneer, and bomber cannon. So it's a flexible civ, but I don't know. I think with it lacking bracer, it falls short to some other civs. All right, finally with the poor section. So this is pretty much all the civs that we hate. There's a couple decent civs in here, I will say, and civs that are good in certain situations and bad in others. So that's pretty much the most notorious thing about the poor civs is that they excel in only one or two areas in the game, and they're not very well rounded of a civilization. So let's go through them one by one. Here we got Burmese, that first one with the Arambai, probably their best unit or best quality, their unique unit. They have a really good men at arm rush with their +1 attack, but aside from those two facts, they have a good economy with their free wood bonuses. I don't know. I struggle to have them anything higher than poor because they die to any pretty much any Arbalest civ. Their Arambai and Mangonel play is kind of easy to counter now because Arambai are more expensive, and it's just tough to get that steamboat going like we used to. So yeah, overall, I think Burmese are pretty easy to play against, and they feel awkward in 1v1 Arabia. They're not very, very strong. Their best strength is to go like men at arm tower and follow it up with a castle behind. If they do that, they're doing pretty well. But again, if it falls to like a feudal with crossbows and stuff like that, they kind of fall short. Italians, this is a pretty bad civ overall. I mean, it only has one bonus, which is the cheaper advancing to ages, but that's just kind of a lackluster bonus. And other than that, they have very little going for them. Their unique unit is good, is great actually against cav civs, such as like Persians, maybe against Indians as well. But other than that, they don't have a lot going for them. Koreans one trick tower civ. It has pretty much nothing else aside from towers. The late game is pretty good though, so if you can go like tower rush into boom and then go for the late game options like the war wagons or arbalest bomber cannon, it's not too bad. But again, kind of a one trick civ, and that's why it's in the poor category. Goths very similar, one trick civ. They just have the husk roll pretty much and the barrack spam. They have no eco bonus and they're very slow to get going. They can, however, win matchups such as like Goths versus Britons in the late game, or Goths versus Mayans in the late game, Goths versus Huns, for example. So they have really good matchups against some of these higher level or higher tier civs. But there's always that one condition where they have to survive to the late game, which is very difficult to do at the higher level. Khmer, this is hands down the worst civilization. I should have put this in red. It is terrible. It has the lowest win rate for good reason. It's something like 40%. It has no real eco bonus. The units it has aren't great. It's missing thumb ring, so the archers aren't great. It's just such a lackluster civ overall. They have one good quality, which is they don't need the barracks in the early game, but oftentimes you get punished by your opponent going scouts anyway, and then you can't make spears. So I don't know. Overall, it's a very clunky civ. Definitely the worst in my opinion. Vietnamese, the probably slowest civilization out there. They've got no bonuses up until like the feudal age. Sorry, up until like the castle age, where they're able to make their Rathan archer. Their bonus to see their opponent's TC can be helpful for laming, but other than that, they have pretty much only the archer line that's strong with the extra HP. Other than that, nothing really going for them. Their unique unit is great. Rathan archer is very strong, but again, it's tough to get there, and they are a pretty much one trick archer and scrim civ. Turks and Saracens. So let's start with Saracens. They have good options. They have a wide open tech tree, but again, very small eco bonus with the market, and you just struggle to get to any solid options in the late game. Although they are flexible, they kind of get outrun by some of these stronger civs on the list. Turks, well, they're lacking elite skirmishers, so again, very exploitable in the higher level games. If they do get to like their heavy cav archer in the late game, could be pretty strong, as well as their Janissary Mangonel push in the castle age, not too bad. But again, lacking elite skirmisher makes it super exploitable, and oftentimes, a smart player will capitalize on that. Then we got Teutons. Teutons is a weird civ because they have a really good economy, but missing husbandry makes their night rush pretty weak, and overall, all their options are very slow. And on 1v1 Arabia, mobility is something that's highly valued, and Teutons just can't really keep up with other mobile civs. So, definitely in the poor section, although they have a great economy. And finally, last but not least, Malay. This is a pretty decent civilization in the right hands. However, it's kind of hard to make work because it has a pretty weak early game. The saying goes, "Malay is delay," is very true. Um, if you don't delay a few minutes, right, when you hit feudal age, for example, you could struggle because you're actually missing some resources, even though you have a couple extra villas over your opponent. And overall, they don't really have too many bonuses in 1v1 Arabia, just the cheaper battle elephants, which rarely comes up. Although I will say that Malay have a pretty good matchup against the Mesosivs because they have elephants to counter the eagles, and then they have faster uptimes to keep up with the economy bonus of the Mesosivs. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for my tier list. I went through all the civs, what I thought about them, briefly explained certain matchups, as well as how to play the civ and what strengths to go for. Overall, I think you guys can take away what civs are better than others, and hopefully you can get a general idea of whether you have the civ advantage in a particular game or not. Keep in mind, civs are not everything. There's other factors like how good the map is, how the players play it, and so don't feel discouraged if you, for example, roll Koreans versus Spanish. There's always a way to win the games, so always play it out and try your best. My recommendation would be is if you get a poor civ, play to its strength. And if it doesn't work, then just resign, but really commit to its strength. For example, if you're Vietnamese, don't open scouts or don't make knights in castle age. Just stick to making archers, or go for the unique unit. Yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to let me know in the comment section what tier list you want to see next. It could be like 1v1 arena tier list. It could be a team game tier list, pocket civ, for example, anything and everything. So let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.